Hello, Chattanooga. You're listening to All New Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Your home for high school football here around the Chattanooga area. We have a game of the week every week, and we're excited to bring a bunch to you. This week, Chattanooga Central versus Red Bank. We had an opportunity to go see Red Bank last week. We got to see their field. We got to see their school. We got to see their band. We didn't really get to see the team play because weather knocked us out. But we're hoping to have a much better week this week as Red Bank hosts Chattanooga Central, and Nick LaFew and I will be there. Sam Jordan will be here in the studio giving you halftime updates, the fifth quarter show afterwards, as well as the countdown to kickoff before. You're not going to want to miss any of that. Thank you for joining me today. You know that I'm a small part of your day, but you find time for me, and I do appreciate any moment that you have. I do want to talk about this Urban Meyer thing, because Urban Meyer is in the position of a guy who really shouldn't have any bargaining chips. Urban Meyer shouldn't be bargaining with anybody. He's in a really bad position. He has a coach that allegedly beat up his wife and we don't know whether or not he reported that, right? Like, this is what this investigation is attempting to unearth and uncover. But Urban Meyer, it doesn't look like he did everything the way that he was supposed to. That's the reason why he's suspended right now. The issue with Urban Meyer is, in fact, that Urban Meyer is he wants to come back and coach, which makes sense. He is a college football coach, but he's serving this time until they figure out what's going on. And they plan on punishing him. That's what the word on the street is. The official announcement was yesterday. It was given to the Columbus Dispatch, the newspaper up in Columbus, Ohio. And it was said that Urban Meyer's fate is going to be decided tomorrow. And Urban Meyer wants to coach, and he wants to come back sooner rather than later. You don't want to take a loss and come back from, oh, well, my team is playing from behind and we're trying to make the playoff. And are we even going to make the conference championship? You don't want any of those problems early in the season. But Urban Meyer's pushing back on this as though he didn't have a problem with a coach that was in a domestic abuse situation with his wife in 2015, which is what he's being investigated for now, but back in 2013 and back in 2009 when he was coaching down in Florida. This is a problem that has followed Urban Meyer, him and his former wide receiver coach, Zach Smith. This has followed them for years. And Urban Meyer pushing back on this because he'd like to come back earlier. He wants his punishment to include time served, which is the suspension for the investigation. He wants that to count in the suspension that they're going to actually give him. Ohio State's got a great team this year. They have a chance to make a run. They have a chance to go win a title. So I understand his desire to come back. But the school can't buckle on this. And the thing that I'm afraid of is that the school's going to buckle on this and that they don't necessarily wear the pants in this situation, that you think that the power comes from the athletic director and that it comes from the president, and then it seems like the power comes from Urban Meyer, that the guy who's in charge of the football program, whether he's wrong for what he did, and it does seem like he's really wrong for what he did, he's going to get what he wants. This can't happen. Like, we all agree that this can't happen, right? Like, Urban Meyer can't be in a situation where clearly there was at least some degree of negligence, because when he was asked about it at Big Ten Media Days, Brent McMurphy, the former ESPN reporter, Brent asked him about it, and Urban Meyer said that he didn't know about the investigation. He didn't know about Zach Smith. This is the first time ever hearing of it. And what we've unearthed so far is that at least Urban Meyer's wife knew. So it's highly unlikely that he didn't know. And not only did his wife know, all of the coaches' wives knew. There's a whole group text. There's screenshots of this group text. It's out there. We know that everybody around Urban Meyer knew. How is it that Urban Meyer didn't know? Either he didn't want to know or he's lying. Those are the only two options. And if your investigation turns up that he was negligent or lying, you have to suspend him. And not this time-served suspension, which is what Urban Meyer wants. He's saying, I already served the suspension. When you decide tomorrow what to do with me, I want you to reinstate me. I've already served the time. That's not how this works there, friend. Here's what happens. They do the investigation, and then they give you the sentence based on what that investigation turned up. You do not get to choose the terms of your sentencing. Could you imagine how absolutely insane that would be? If you went if you committed some crime and you were in court, you broke let's go with a speeding ticket, because I got one of those not too long ago, right? Like, you got a speeding ticket and you're in court, and the judge is like, yeah, you got to pay your speeding ticket, and you got to come to these safety classes, and you go, well, I don't want to do that. What if I just give you like $15 and some of the change in my pocket, and you just let me go? Right? Like, I already got to be here. I already got to pay court fees. Like, no, you pay what they tell you to pay. You give them the money that they ask for, because you're not deciding your punishment. And this is where college football is just upside down and weird. The people who end up doing things that can be punishable generally are the coaches. And usually the people with the power generally are also the coaches. And everybody else in the administration and everybody else in the room, especially at a big school like Ohio State, they all have to sit around and pretend as though they didn't know that the person that actually wears the pants in that relationship is, in fact, the head coach of the football team. This is why it's so infuriating when things happen on a college campus and coaches act like they didn't know, right? Like when Rick Pitino had that whole situation happening at Louisville where prostitutes were hired to entice players to come play at the school. And then Rick Pitino went, I don't know about that. Yeah, you do. We know how this works. Like the coach that coaches at the biggest programs, like these guys control everything. They absolutely have to by nature. Like their job is so on the line, and it's such a volatile business, college football. They're in control of it all, and they have to be. That's the nature of the game. So I don't really believe Urban Meyer when he says, well, he didn't know. But even if he didn't know, there's a punishment for not knowing. Like, not knowing is not an excuse for there's a guy who's had an issue that has repeated itself, because Urban Meyer had this problem with his former wide receiver coach, Zach Smith, back in 2009 at Florida, and he reported it then. This is the issue that I'm having. He knows what to do. He's done it before. Then he had this issue with Zach Smith again. Zach Smith, domestic abuse situation with his ex-wife, Courtney Smith, back in 2013. And again, Urban Meyer reports him. And then you have a situation pop up again in 2015, and that's where it starts to get a little bit blurry. Did Urban Meyer not know? Did he not report Zach Smith? It's unclear what's happening there. But what is clear is that there was some level of negligence going on, and if Urban Meyer is to be punished for what it is that he's done, it can't be that Urban Meyer is going to decide, well, I served my time already. Otherwise, let's just have criminals deciding their own sentences. Why don't you just let your kids ground themselves? Like, why not just do that? Right? Like, this is the fox in the hen house situation. The coach cannot be the person to decide this, because he's obviously going to decide in the favor of more coaching. Like, this is a profession that you already are giving up your family and you're giving up your wife and everything in favor of staying in a building in a small, like 5 by 10 room, and you watch film all day so you can have a chance to get maybe a slight edge over your opponent. That's what kind of job this is. This guy is obsessed with coaching. They all are. You can't let him decide his punishment. He's going to decide to coach. And I'm worried because the sentence is going to be laid down tomorrow. And I'm worried that Ohio State is going to somehow let Urban Meyer decide his own sentence, proving to us that Urban Meyer wears the pants in this relationship. And this is not even new for Ohio State. If you remember, Jim Tressel got in trouble with the NCAA for, quite frankly, a violation that now seems laughable. Like, the players got tattoos, which is improper benefits, but that's not even a big deal compared to what Urban Meyer's wrapped up in, and the case of the toxic locker room that happens in Maryland with DJ Durkin, and what happened with Art Briles and Baylor. Like, there's so many places you could go with this. And if you look at those things and compare that to what Jim Tressel was dealing with, Jim Tressel's a choir boy. And even then, there were reports that Jim Tressel was directing the investigation of Ohio State, and there were things that he wanted out that the school wouldn't release. The person wearing the pants in that relationship is Jim Tressel, the head coach. And Jim Tressel is just a leagues more softer spoken, nicer guy than Urban Meyer. Like if Jim Tressel can steer the university in whatever direction he wants to, then you know that Urban Meyer has more weight, more force, more clout behind him than Jim Tressel did. Then obviously, if Urban Meyer wants a sentence and the university is going to let Urban Meyer choose his sentence, my dude's just going to make up whatever sentence he wants, which is exactly what I would do in his shoes, which is why you can't leave it up to him. This is just one of those things that ought to be obvious, and it doesn't seem to be obvious, or at least it's obvious to everyone but Ohio State University. You're listening to All New Nougat Radio here on NougatRadio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose is the show. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you. So I'm going to shift gears here over to the NBA because management has decided that we're not going to be talking about NFL players because NFL players kneel. So we're going to talk about the other thing that the boss likes to talk about, LeBron James. LeBron James is officially a Los Angeles Laker. They've begun practicing, and they look like they're having a great time. Right? They look like they're having fun. Off-season LeBron, if you are a guy that has to play with LeBron, that's the best LeBron. That's the most fun you're ever going to have with LeBron. You are never going to have this much fun with LeBron James again. And Channing Frye, who was in Cleveland, teammate of LeBron James, had some really good reasons why this is true. And he's 100% right. One, when you play with LeBron, you have more pressure on you than anybody else because LeBron's legacy is at stake. And when LeBron's legacy is at stake, if you're his teammate, you're going to be under a microscope because there's two things that get scrutinized to death in the NBA. One is LeBron, the other is LeBron's teammates. I mean, I don't think that in the 4-year span that Kevin Love was a Cleveland Cavalier, like I don't think we spent more time analyzing Kevin Love than when he was in Cleveland with LeBron. And we probably won't analyze Kevin Love that closely ever again. Ever again. I don't think we ever spent so much time in our entire lives analyzing J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith, at this point in his career, is a role player. He's a role player. And we are breaking down what decision should J.R. Smith have made. Should he have passed it? Should he have rebounded it? If J.R. Smith were on any other team, it's just one of those, oh, J.R. moments. It's not here because LeBron's legacy is at stake. People will actually throw you under a verbal bus behind LeBron James. Like this is a heaping amount of pressure. The kinds of mistakes that you can make and get away with on the other 29 teams in the league, you do not get away with if LeBron James is your teammate. Which brings me to the other point. Like these guys are young. This isn't a group of guys that have been in different pressure situations of their own before. Lonzo's never been there. Brandon Ingram's never been there. Like these guys don't know what real pressure is like, and they are about to experience it. And to Channing Frye's other point, they're about to experience it from the word go. This isn't a situation where you make it to the playoffs and then you start to feel a little bit of pressure because that's normal. That's what happens to most guys. Most guys, you play in Denver and nobody watches you all season long and suddenly you're in the playoffs and there's pressure, right? Like we were impressed by a guy like Donovan Mitchell because Donovan Mitchell was in Utah and he was putting up incredible numbers. But let's be honest, when you play in Utah, we're not really watching you. We didn't know how good Donovan Mitchell was. And then he gets into the playoffs and he has some of these monster performances. He outplays Russell Westbrook. And we're impressed by how he was able to play under pressure. But imagine if that's how he had to play from the opening tip of game 1 of the season to the playoffs. Does he even hold up that long, like mentally? Because I don't know. It's a lot to ask of a young guy. That's a lot to ask of Lonzo's second year in the league. That's a lot to ask of Brandon Ingram's third year in the league. It's a lot to ask of these guys, honestly. They're really good, really talented players. There's a bright future there. Luke Walton is a bright future with him as a head coach. But playing with LeBron is a different animal. You have a target on your back every single night. And the thing that I find to be the most wild about all of this is that teams want to beat you. Like if you beat the Lakers and the Lakers are in trouble, you're going to be on SportsCenter. That's motivation for a team. Plus, they're in the West, and you can't imagine, like, the West is so tough. I can't imagine that the Spurs and the Warriors and the Jazz and all of these teams, the Rockets, that had such a great year last year, want to keep hearing about LeBron. Like, they're going to want to shut you up. And if you're connected to LeBron, they're going to make you look bad. That's the plan. That's what they want to do. And can you handle the pressure of that for an 82-game grind of a season, not including playoffs? Because, of course, once you make it to the playoffs, the grind increases. The pressure mounts even more. And if you win the first round, a lot of people expect the Lakers to struggle in the playoffs this year. But what if you win in the first round? That's more pressure. What if you win in the second? What if you go to the conference finals? All of a sudden, people are going to be talking about how great LeBron James is. And if you are the guy that screws up, if you're Brandon Ingram and you have your J.R. Smith moment, they will never forget you for none of the reasons that you want, right? Like, that's exactly where you're at. I don't know how much these young guys are actually ready for the situation that they have entered. You think it's all fun and games playing with LeBron in the summer. It is a little bit. There's no pressure. You're shooting around. You're getting a feel for your teammate. But your teammate's not like any other teammate. This is where I think the Chicago Bulls around Michael Jordan don't get as much credit as they should have, is that Michael Jordan's legacy is at stake every time he steps out onto the floor. He's got a target on his back every single time he steps out onto the floor. And because of that, you can't help but look at Michael Jordan and go, that was an incredible group of guys around him that they knew. Right? Like, it was a big deal when Scottie couldn't hold up in the playoffs because he was dealing with the migraines and the headaches. Now, I mean, migraines are no joke. Like, people treat migraines like, it's just a little headache. Take some Advil. Like, no, migraines are no joke. But people were seriously running Scottie Pippen under a bus. Like, go back and read some of the stuff that people wrote about Scottie Pippen back then and his mental toughness. When you're connected to an all-time great, the pressure on you is enormous. And we've seen that Scottie Pippen was able to overcome a lot of that. Like, again, like later in the career, he was dealing with some back issues. That finals run that the Bulls went on that gave Jordan the 6th ring. Like, Scottie had back issues in that series, which is what makes Michael Jordan's performance in that series even more impressive, is that Scottie was dealing with back spasms. Like, if you look at the team that was around, people question your mental toughness. They question your heart. They question your desire. They question everything about you. And if you're Lonzo and you're 20, 21 years old, can you live with this? Is this something that you are going to be able to thrive under? This isn't like normal Lakers pressure. There are certain cities you play in, and the pressure's there. The pressure is on from the word go. LA, pressure's on. New York, pressure's on. Like, those are big markets, big towns with people that care about sports and almost nothing else. Like, you're LeBron James. You add to LA, you multiply that effect. If you're Lonzo, is this something that you are capable of holding up on for an entire 82-game season plus playoffs and beyond? You're asking a lot of these young guys. You're asking a lot of Brandon Ingram. All right, and I know they brought in some other dudes, some vets. They brought in Rondo. Yeah, I know. They brought in Lance Stevenson. Yeah, I know. But the guys that really need to step up, those are the young dudes on this team. That's Lonzo. That's Ingram. That's Kuzma. Like, these young guys need to step up. And will they? Is that too much to ask? You're listening to All New Nougat Radio here on 92.7 FM. By the way, get your high school football spirits in high gear on Thursday nights with Nougat Radio's Gridiron Gang Show, live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks at 10 North on the North Shore. Then join Sam Jordan on Friday nights with the Countdown to Kickoff presented by One-on-One Personal Training, beginning at 7 p.m. Then later, myself, Nick LaFew, will bring you all the excitement of the high school football game of the week at 7:30. This Friday night, it's Chattanooga Central versus Red Bank. Chattanooga Central will visit Red Bank, and after the game, Sam will get you caught up with all of the scores and highlights from across the region with the fifth quarter show. Sports is Super with Nooga Radio 92.7 FM. Are the Raptors bending over backwards too far to acquiesce to Kawhi Leonard?
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
A Bradley County inmate has died. It happened yesterday afternoon, according to a release from the Bradley County Sheriff's Office. Correction officers tried to save the inmate, but it was too late. The TBI has taken over the investigation into the inmate's death. She's been identified as 54-year-old Fonzanette Branham. Hep A cases are skyrocketing in Chattanooga. 15 cases have been reported since May, and that number continues to climb. Hepatitis A can be prevented and treated with a vaccine and generally spreads through unwashed hands and contaminated food. And cops say 2 women have been charged after a 17-year-old boy was shot dead. Nautica Spicer and Kerrigan Silverwood were arrested. The Clarksville Police news release says Spicer had been playing with an unloaded firearm. Police say the gun was later loaded. Spicer didn't know it. Investigators say Spicer then pointed the gun at the boy and pulled the trigger. Val St. John for Nooga Radio. News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
David Toulis. I made the move 1 o'clock every weekday afternoon, 1 till 3, Nooga Radio.
92.7 Chattanooga weather.
Becoming partly cloudy through your nighttime hours, a little drier and milder overnight, lows into the upper 60s. For your midweek, looking good. A touch of fall on the way with some sunshine, less humid weather, afternoon highs into the lower 80s, overnight lows Thursday morning, 60 to 64. Tired of the pressures and hassles of car shopping? Come see what more people are making the short drive to Jackson Chevrolet Buick GMC in Lafayette or online at jacksongm.com. That's Jackson Chevy Buick GMC in Lafayette. And I'm Soren Dean Quality Meteorology Manager for
Nooga Radio 92.7.
I got my business up and running, and it's already expanding. I got lucky. Lucky because I found Signal Voice and Data. Signal Voice and Data can incorporate all of my business information sharing and communications seamlessly, keep my costs down, and let me work more productively with endless connectivity no matter where I might be. That's called working smart, not hard. Go to signalvoicetn.com and bring the future of communication to your business today. signalvoicetn.com.
Let's face it, Old Faithful isn't as faithful as it used to be. Constant repairs are a hassle and can rack up quick in money and time. Landers McClarty Ford can fix that. Right now, you can get a 2016 Ford Focus, 34,000 miles, only $11,491. A 2017 Chevy Spark with only 17,000 miles for less than $12,000. A 2015 Volkswagen Jetta with less than 21,000 miles for $11,991. Yeah, browse their entire inventory of new and new-to-you cars, trucks, and SUVs online at Landers McCarty Ford of FortPayne.com. Landers McClarty Ford of Fort Payne. If you can't find your next perfect ride, they'll go find it for you. Big city selection, small town prices, friendly service, and top dollar for your trade. The savings are waiting and only a short drive away, so what are you waiting for? Get started with your personalized shopping today at Landers McClarty Ford of FortPayne.com.
Nooga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Hello? Who am I speaking with?
Eric, you're our winner.
Really?
You'll receive tickets for all 3 races between the Camping World Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Monster Energy Cup races.
Holy cow.
In addition, you'll receive a 2-night stay at the Microtel Hotel and restaurant accommodations at 2 area restaurants.
Nooga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Nooga Radio
92.7.
Your NASCAR racing station. Nooga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
Join Nooga Radio and the Gridiron Gang live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks at 10 North on the North Shore. We're talking all things high school football. There's a specialty brew or refresher weekly inspired by the game of the week. Sweet treats, extended hours all season long, and we're pet friendly. Portions of all proceeds support local schools and educational scholarships as well as after-school programs. It's football time in Tennessee. Join us every Thursday live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks, 10 North, your North Shore neighborhood living room.
Call 423-875-3600 if you're looking to expand your professional look of your business. Then consider the vast opportunities that are available when you locate your office with the Raines Group family. Remember, it's location, location, location. And the Raines Group has the location for your professional office. Check out the spaces for lease at Executive Business Park on the Lee Highway. Small or large, we will be able to suit your needs with the Raines Group. Call 423-875-3600 for the business professionals with the Raines Group.
Chattanooga Paint and Decorating would like to remind you it's so hot out there. And guess what? Your deck is taking a beating. It's probably starting to show wear. If you're hosting friends, get your deck entertainment ready with a fresh coat of stain and protect it from heat, sun, and rain with a quality sealant. If you want to get to work, Chattanooga Paint and Decorating want to help you. For exterior paints, stains, sealants, and supplies, stop by Chattanooga Paint and Decorating today on Hicks and Pike across from Valvoline or online at ChattanoogaPaint.com.
Nuga Radio.
Are you brain dead? Still voting for pathetic liberals? Take 3 hours of Sean Hannity from 3 to 6.
Nuga Radio.
Then call us in the morning between 9 and 11.
92.7
Nuga Radio. It's the moment you've been waiting for. Sam Jordan's Nuga Radio, 92.7 Sports. Now.
You're listening to Nuga Radio 92.7 FM. The show is Locker Room Show. I'm Keon again. So there's an interesting story happening in Toronto with Kawhi Leonard and his peoples. Kawhi Leonard had a friend of his hired by the Toronto Raptors. And, you know, we've got a lot of stuff going on in the White House. And so there's a big thing about like nepotism. I think we're talking about nepotism like now more than we've ever been talking about nepotism. I feel like it's not this big a deal in a sports like front office. Like I just feel like it's one thing to worry about nepotism in the Oval Office. It's another thing to worry about it in the Raptors front office. It's just not, the scale is just not there. But it is interesting that this idea that you were hiring somebody's friend for the idea that you might be able to keep that person. The Raptors have taken a very large gamble in trading for Kawhi Leonard. He's one of the best players in the league. He's certainly a top 3 two-way player in this league. He's right up there with LeBron and Kevin Durant. And he's going to make the Raptors a contender out of the box. They traded DeMar DeRozan for him, and it's a good trade. It makes sense for what it is that they're trying to do, which is that the team that they had previously with Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, they weren't going anywhere. Every year, their trip in the playoffs was a shorter trip than they had ever planned for it to be. The Eastern Conference Finals appearance that they had felt like a joke. It just nothing ever just coalesced for them and ever meshed for them. So I look at the Raptors and I go, well, yeah, you're going to have an issue where you're going to have to blow this thing up eventually. So better to kind of blow it up and take one more swing at it with a better player, which they did. Makes perfect sense. But it's a 1-year rental. And then if it doesn't work out, well, then you got to try something else. But if you can keep Kawhi, and the reason why they're trying is because the blueprint got laid down already last year. Paul George gets traded to Oklahoma City with the Thunder, and I don't think anybody really thought that Paul George was going to stay in Oklahoma City. He chose to stay in a small market with, you know, a rabid fan base and a superstar that people find controversial. He made a very controversial decision in choosing to stay with the Thunder. Good for him. Hope he's happy. But the Raptors look at that and go, there's a blueprint here. There's a way that you can get a superstar to your team that may not necessarily want to be on your team. And he's in a contract here. Kawhi Leonard hasn't played basketball in a very long time. He has to come out and show what he can do. So go ahead and play. And if he can't play, he doesn't look as good. You might be able to get him at a discount. If he comes out and he looks well, then you have other things you can try to do to try and keep him in place and convince him to stay with your team. Is this actually going to work? Because this is Kawhi's friend. He wanted a position. He applied for it. And this isn't a guy who's a scrub, right? Like, this isn't just some guy off the street. Let's just hire Kawhi's friend to make Kawhi happy. Like, we don't have to hire his friend to make him happy. We can go out there and hire like a legitimate guy. He's coached in the D League. He played high school and college ball. He coached under a college coach as an assistant. Like, he's had experience. He's gone down the path that a number of NBA coaches and NBA assistants have gone down. So when you want to say this guy, does he deserve the job that he's getting? He does, in terms that he has the credentials. But here's something that's important. And it's very important in the business I'm in, but honestly, it's important in every single business. It's almost not what you know, it's who you know. Like, what you know is important. You're not going to be ever hired by American Airlines to fly a plane if you've never flown a plane. And if you don't have the amount of experience and the certification and the number of hours in the simulator and the number of hours in actual flight that you are supposed to have, they're never going to hire you to fly a plane. But if you already know how to fly a plane, if you have somebody on the inside who can help you get that job, well, then you might use that person on the inside to help you get that job. Like that, and that's true in radio. People are not going to put you on the air if you don't know how to be on the air, if you don't know how to talk, if you're not interesting. Like, there's a number of reasons why you'll never make it on the air. But once you've proven you can, and the people in the industry know that you can, it's easier to move around. It's easier to make, allies, make friends, make acquaintances. I mean, it's easier to do this. And this is every business, especially one where it's very communication heavy. And that's sports. Sports is very communication heavy. And if you're the Raptors, you go, we got to try and do whatever it takes to keep Kawhi Leonard in the building. Let's hire his friend. Does his friend need to know how to actually be, I think it was a video coordinator job. Does his friend need to know how to actually be a video coordinator? Yes. Yes, he does. You can't just throw anybody in the job. But once he knows the stuff already, if you get a job because of a friend, I mean, it's still a job. It's still a good job. There's nothing there that speaks to your value. You might still be valuable, but yeah, having an in helps. I mean, I'm not seeing anything here that's not somewhere else. Like, the Raptors are getting criticized for this a little bit because it just seems like a desperate ploy to keep Kawhi Leonard. It is a desperate ploy to keep Kawhi Leonard. Of course it is. What else would it be? The chances that they have of keeping Kawhi Leonard are slim to none. Of course this is a desperate ploy. They would be stupid not to do it, though. This is a gamble. And with any gamble, like, if you know that it's risky, you do everything that you can to make that risk less impactful, to make that risk less of a big deal for you. You do, obviously. This makes no sense that this is a big story or this is a big deal that the Raptors are doing this. The Raptors are doing the same thing that anybody else has ever done. I mean, there's a reason why, you have coaching trees the way that they work in the NFL and coaching trees the way they work in the NBA. That I'm easily hired because I worked for a guy that everybody knows and that everybody likes. That's why Mike Holmgren's coaching tree, you see it all over the league. You see Doug Peterson in Philadelphia. You see Jay Gruden in Washington. You see Kyle Shanahan out in San Francisco. Like, all of these guys have come down from this tree, but it's because you hire people that you know. You hire people that you're familiar with. And you go from there. Everybody does this. This is not new. And if the Raptors want to do this on the off chance that hiring this guy helps them keep Kawhi Leonard, then it makes absolute sense. And they hired a guy that was qualified to do the job anyway. So if Kawhi decides to leave, it's not like they have to turn around and fire this guy. They have a guy who can already do the job. They didn't hire a scrum. They didn't hire a scrub. They didn't hire some bum off the street. They hired a guy that is capable of doing this job. You're listening to all new Nuga Radio here on NugaRadio.com, 92.7 FM. We are the home of NASCAR in the greater Chattanooga area. And we had Bristol last week. Kyle Busch, usually very dominant at Bristol over his career, 21 wins at Bristol across several different events. And he was pretty uneventful. And Kyle Busch is another guy that, by the way, is considering retirement. Kurt Busch hasn't said when he's retiring, but he's considering it too. And we're losing a lot of these older stars from NASCAR. And I worry about it. I worry about NASCAR from the aspect of there are young guys who can drive. There are young guys who are going to be stars. But is the way paved for them to really achieve that level of stardom? I look at other sports. I look at the NFL and the draft, and I look at the NBA and the draft, and the way these sports are able to pump up the volume on young guys that are entering the league so that you have an idea who the future stars are going to be. If you're a diehard NASCAR fan, then you know that Austin Dillon is going to be pretty special. But what about anybody else? Like, we've heard about Bo Wallace, but like you need a younger, fresh set of blood in the sport to make this something that people want to sit down and watch every Sunday and Saturday nights. I mean, like you want this, but I don't think that the proper promotional push has been out there, and you have to. It's part of the business model of sports is when you see Tiger Woods and Phil getting old, you better start looking for Rory and Spieth and Lee and other guys that are younger. I mean, and you just have to do it because stars draw people to sports. And this isn't a team sport like that. Like, if you ask, are there really, really stars in college football? There are. They're called the teams and the coaches. As good as Ohio State is this year, Urban Meyer's the star. There's a reason why Urban Meyer's in a situation where he's trying to figure out how he can dictate the terms of his own punishment, because he's the star. Jeremy Pruitt, he's a man of few words. He's not a loud guy. He's not open with the media, but he's a star. He's the star of the Tennessee Vols. Nick Saban is the star of Alabama. Stars draw people in. We tune in. We want to see, is Nick Saban going to win more national championships than anybody else? Is that possible? Are we really going to witness that in our lifetime? Most likely. It'd be hard to believe that Nick Saban can't and won't. But we tune in because he's the star. NASCAR's an individual sport. Who's the star? Who's the star? Not a star, the star. Like the moment that Aaron Judge popped up, he's a Yankee. He's a young, good-looking kid. He hits homers. Aaron Judge became a star. Major League Baseball didn't waste any time pushing these guys. They didn't waste any time pushing any of those guys over in Boston with the Red Sox. Because again, the Red Sox, another premier team, Devers, Mookie Betts, who may be an MVP candidate this year. You're looking at it and you go, yeah, these sports realize that they've got to market stars. NASCAR has stars, but none of these guys are young. Where's the future of the sport? Where's the future of the sport? That doesn't seem to take top priority to me. Making sure that people do know of these younger guys hopping in these cars so you have an emotional attachment, because it's hard to watch NASCAR when you don't know the guys driving and you don't see them. So you have to make that push. You have to make these guys look cool. You have to put the promotions out there. And I think the NASCAR used to do a really good job of that. And I don't think that they currently do. It's not necessarily the priority. And that's entirely up to them. Hey, man, that's all them. I'm just saying, it doesn't appear to be their number one priority. You're listening to All New Nougat Radio and NougatRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Keon Rose filling in on the Locker Room Show for Sam Jordan. And it's crazy. DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love have been talking about mental illness. And it's something in America we have trouble talking about it. I don't think it has the stigma that it used to have. I think people are more open to the idea of talking about mental illness. People are more open to the idea of even going to a therapist, and to the point where you could say you go see a therapist and people don't necessarily think something's wrong with you, because nothing has to be wrong with you. Sometimes you go to a therapist just for a little maintenance, just for a little headspace. Your brain is an organ. When you go to the doctor checks your vital signs. He checks how your heart's doing, right? They ask you, have you been smoking? Have you been drinking? They can find out how your liver's doing, how your lungs are doing. You go to a therapist, they're just trying to find out how your brain's doing. Sometimes it's like it could be just a checkup. I think we've gotten to the point where the stigma is fully there. Obviously, there's still some. Serena Williams talking about postpartum depression made me realize that I can't think of the last time that anybody talked about postpartum depression in public. But I like that DeRozan and Kevin Love are doing this and talking about mental health in the NBA. In the NBA specifically, because people look up to those guys. Kids look up to those guys. I remember when I was a kid looking up to NBA players. My favorite player was Steve Nash because he wasn't really fast and he wasn't particularly strong, but he was a great passer and he could always see 3 steps ahead. I looked up to him. Looked up to Tony Parker. You look up to NBA players when you're a kid. People look up to Kevin Love. People look up to DeMar DeRozan. He's got a nice game. Incredibly fun to watch. Look forward to seeing him as a Spur. People do look up to Kevin Love. Right? Like he's not going to be with LeBron this season, so I imagine we're not going to pay as much attention to Kevin Love as we used to pay to Kevin Love, but he's still a big deal in terms of the fact that like he's one of the best rebounders and three-point shooting big men in the game. That's valuable in today's NBA, no matter who you are. So, Kevin Love saying this stuff and talking about how he had an anxiety attack, which is something that you talk about that 10, 15 years ago. You have a panic attack, you have anxiety issues, and man, they laugh you out of the room. It takes a lot of courage still to talk about it because one of the things that we talk about in sports all the time is mental toughness. And we make it seem like you're the worst thing ever if you're not mentally tough. As though being mentally tough on the basketball court and being mentally strong in life are somehow the same thing. And somehow that taking care of your mental aspect, acknowledging that your brain does certain things. Like if you have depression, you should probably admit that your brain has some imbalance that causes you to be depressed. You should probably acknowledge this. Or that you don't go outside and get enough sunlight or eat properly. You should probably admit this to yourself so that you can deal with it. That's strength. That's mental toughness too, is figuring out where your weaknesses are and handling it. That's also strength. And we treat it like it's not that. And so for an athlete to come out and say, especially a guy like Kevin Love, because Kevin Love has been questioned about his mental toughness, and it's been unfair. I haven't seen anything from Kevin Love that seems to display the fact that he's mentally weak and can't hold up to pressure. But he had a panic attack. He said he felt like he was dying, which is exactly what a panic attack feels like. I've had one. It's not fun. You feel like something is going to kill you, but you can't tell what it is, and you don't know where it's coming from. It's a bad situation. But I feel safe for admitting that. I am a radio host. I don't need to be mentally tough in the same way that a guy who may end up shooting free throws in an NBA Finals, I don't need to be mentally tough in the same way that guy needs to be mentally tough. And we're seeing more and more athletes come out about these issues. Brian Dawkins, in his Hall of Fame speech, was talking about his depression and the fact that he was considering suicide. Right? And if you are, by the way, there is a suicide prevention hotline. I recommend that you search that and talk to somebody if you really need some help. But it is a real serious issue. And you think to yourself, well, athletes go through this stuff. Why should they be depressed? Guys, it's sickness. That being depressed has nothing to do with your success level. Being depressed has nothing to do with how much money you make. DeMar DeRozan said something really, really interesting. He said that he wished that everyone was rich and successful, so that everybody would know that being depressed has nothing to do with how successful or rich you are. It doesn't. It's an illness. And if it's something that you struggle with, you absolutely owe it to yourself to talk to somebody, to get it off your chest. And if you need meds, to take meds. There's a stigma around that too. Like, oh boy, I'm taking medications, I must be cuckoo. That's not how this works. If you're taking medication for depression, it's balancing you out. Like everything in your body, everything in your mind, the endorphins, the hormones, those all act like a drug. And sometimes these things can be unbalanced. They could be off balance. You take medications to balance that stuff back out, right? Like we're not all built the same, and it's okay. And I like that these athletes are coming out and talking about it because it's okay. You're not normal. You're not crazy. You're not weird. But if you're struggling with anxiety or you're struggling with depression or any other form of mental illness, seeking professional help, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. You're listening to All New Nuga Radio and NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Get your high school football spirits in high gear on Thursday nights with Nuga Radio's Gridiron Gang Show, live from 7 to 9 p.m. at Starbucks at 10 North on the North Shore. Then join Sam Jordan on Friday nights with the Countdown to Kickoff presented by One-on-One Personal Training beginning at 7 p.m. Later, myself and Nick LaFew will bring you the excitement of high school football. The high school football game of the week at 7:30 this Friday night is Chattanooga Central visiting Red Bank. And after the game, Sam Jordan gets you up to date with all of the scores and highlights from across the region with the fifth quarter show. This has been the Locker Room Show with Sam Jordan. Clutch with Keon Rose. Still me. Who's next?
Traffic, news, and information. Nuga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
A federal appeals court ruled that Hamilton County Schools violated the rights of Luca Hyde, a young boy with Down syndrome, by barring him from attending regular classes in public school. The decision was made by Judge Batchelder in a 25-page opinion. The Tri-Community Volunteer Fire Department rushed to the scene of a kitchen fire on Ginkgo Road in Ottawa last night. The residents were able to escape the house, and firefighters rescued a cat from the second floor. Nobody was hurt. The fire ruled to be accidental. Free clinics have been set up around the city to deal with the hepatitis A epidemic that's quickly erupting in Hamilton County. Health department officials say vaccination will be free for anyone who's deemed to be at risk. That includes recreational drug users. The inmate who died in the Bradley County jail has been identified as 54-year-old Fawn Zanette Branham. The TBI is handling the investigation. Russell Stroud, Nuga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. on Nuga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nuga Radio 92.7. Chattanooga weather.
Becoming partly cloudy through your nighttime hours. A little drier and milder overnight. Lows into the upper 60s. For your midweek, looking good. A touch of fall on the way with some sunshine. Less humid weather. Afternoon highs into the lower 80s. Overnight lows Thursday morning 60 to 64. Tired of the pressures and hassles of car shopping? Come see what more people are making the short drive to Jackson Chevrolet Buick GMC in Lafayette or online at jacksongm.com. That's Jackson Chevy Buick GMC in Lafayette. And I'm Soren Dean Walsh, meteorology manager for
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Dear Mary Maids, please clean the kitchen and the cabinets and floors and the chairs. And I wish you could clean the dog. Colin is now feeding himself. Thanks, Megan.
Hi, Megan. No worries. We got it all cleaned up. Let's hope Colin gets past the spaghetti flinging stage soon. Till then, we've got you covered. See you next time. Mary Maids.
Call 423-954-7443.
Your home is a constant work in progress. Repaint the walls? Yeah, easy enough. Leaky faucet? There's a video for that. But roof repair? You might want some help. That's where Chattanooga Roofing Contractors come in. They have 3 generations of roofing excellence you can count on. Leave the ladder in the garage. Go to chatroofing.com. That's chatroofing.com. for Chattanooga Roofing Contractors, a roofing company you can trust.
Wow, Triumph Spitfire. I haven't seen one of those in ages. Boy, is it gorgeous.
Thanks. It was my grandfather's. Drives like a dream.
Where do you go to keep it up?
Rivermont Pure. I never thought I'd find a place, but they specialize in older and European cars. They get the hard-to-find parts and treat me right every time.
Rivermont Pure?
Yeah, they're on Hickson Pike across from Lupton Drive. I found them online at rivermontpureservice.com.
Rivermont Pure, import or domestic. If it rolls, they work it.
You know, this isn't working.
What?
I've always wanted to see Italy.
Oh, let me call Lisa.
With 20 years in the travel industry, Lisa Tanner and Travel Makers can make any dream destination come true. Think of Lisa as your own 24/7 travel concierge. Pick a place and she'll customize every detail. Go to lisatannertravel.com to plan your next travel experience.
Now this is incredible. Think Lisa can get us a layover in Greece?
Travel Makers, we sell the world.
Charge! Get back there, you dang Yankee! Great horny toads, I'm up north. Gotta burn my boots. They touched Yankee soil. Lay down your arms and step forward, Yankee.
What's the hassle, Schmassel?
My orders from General Lee is to hold the Macy-Dixie line, and no Yankees are crossing.
WPLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga.
Serving Chattanooga.
Broadcasting live from the center of the universe, the Tennessee Valley's most listened to news talk station.
Nooga